Hi, scholars. It is Miss Breeding here to guide you through guided reading again this week. Today, we are going to continue to build on our retelling skills, but before we move forward, I want us to review to make sure that we understand. So, my first question for you is, what is retelling? Go ahead and take a moment to pause the video if you need to, but see if you can remember what it means to retell a story. What is retelling? Great. Now that you're back, your answer should have been something along the lines of retelling is giving a summary of a story. Retelling is a summary of a story which only includes important details. Okay, so even if you got your answer incorrect, I want you to remember that when someone tells you to retell a story, you're focusing on telling them what happened in the story, but only focusing on the key details, things that are very, very important. Okay. What does the retelling hand help us do? So we had the picture last week of the hand that had different words on them. What do those words remind us to do? Great. Each of the words that are represented by each finger, they tell us what we should include in our retell. Okay, so the pinky finger, remember, it reminds us to include our characters. And our ring finger reminds us to include the setting. Remember, characters are people or different different characters. It could be humans, it can be objects that are brought to life that are in the story that are guiding us or guiding us through the story or telling us about the story or telling us the story. And the setting is telling us where everything is taking place. Okay. So moving on, the next two skills we are focusing on today are our tall finger, which represents problems in the story, and our index finger, which tells us about events in the story. Let's dig a little bit deeper to see what those things, problems and events, actually mean so we know how to identify them. So, a problem is a serious disagreement or issue that affects the character or causes big issues in the story. Problems are usually solved at the end of the story. For an example, I have the story The Three Little Pigs. Most of you all, if not all, should have heard the story of the Three Little Pigs. One of the problems in the story was the first pig built his house out of hay, so the wolf was able to easily blow it down. Okay, another problem was the second pig built his house out of sticks, and the wolf was able to easily blow his house down as well. Okay, so those are problems in the story, something that causes some type of conflict or some type of issue with the character. Okay, it had an impact on the character. After the wolf blew down the first house, that pig no longer had anywhere to stay. After the wolf blew down the second pig's house, that pig no longer had anywhere to stay. So those problems in the story caused an issue on for the characters. Okay. So my question to you was, tell me if you can identify another problem that was in the Three Little Pigs outside of the straw house or the hay house and the stick house. What was another problem? It's a little bit tricky. Think a little bit harder. I think you got it. So another problem was not only was the wolf trying to blow their houses down, he was also trying to eat the pigs. Okay, so that's another issue. Just imagine if you have a house built out of paper and there's a wolf trying to come eat you. Not only do you not have anywhere to hide or to protect yourself, you also have to worry about getting eaten. Okay, so as you can see throughout stories that you read, there could be one big problem or there could be a series of a lot of little problems. Okay, but problems are serious disagreements or issues that have an impact on the characters. Next, what is an event? An event is when something happens in a story. Sometimes events can change or have an impact on a character's life. So it says, do you remember Sassy from Miss Breeding's favorite book, Dancing in the Wings? I read this to both Larson and Garvey in the beginning of the year. Um, Do you remember a time where something happened to Sassy and it had an impact on her life? Although there are a lot of events, I'm going to remind you or share with you all Miss Breeding's favorite event from this book. Because remember, Sassy had a hard time in ballet class. She wanted to be a ballerina, but because she was so tall and clumsy, a lot of people ignored her or picked on her. And they had tryouts for this huge dance recital, and on this page, we learned that she made it. And so she was able to come home. Her mom and her grandfather were ready to celebrate her. And so was her brother and other members of her brother's football team. So this was an event that had an impact on Sassy's life because it helped her to realize that she can be just as good of a dancer as everyone else in her classes. She was the only one chosen out of her entire class that tried out. So that is an example of an event in a story. So I have a challenge for you. Can you retell your favorite book using the skills we have learned this far? You should try it. So your assignment for the remainder of class today is to think about your favorite book. It could be a book that you are reading now. It could be a book that you have already read, or it could be a book from a long, long time ago. Okay, if you have parents like mine, they love to tell stories from their childhood. Ask someone in your family to tell you one of their favorite childhood stories or a story of their life that has characters, settings, problems, and events. Your assignment for today is to write that and turn it in with your packet. You will have a sheet of blank paper for today, and you will be responsible for sharing the characters, the setting, the problem, and events. I also want you to include the title of the story or who is telling you the story for this assignment. I cannot wait to see what you all have learned, and I will see you all next time.